Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of African News Review. This is the news show where we look at the depiction of global Africa in the Western media, and I'll get my esteemed panel to sort of give us their take on what they envisage might be happening. And so, in no particular order, I'll start with Lady, obviously. She is Fubara Eneli Esquire, author Kwanzaa Celebration, host Rethinking Freedom, and which you can hear on 98.5 FM Killeen, Texas. She's also a stream of co-hosts, one of which is Women and Resistance, a regular weekly show on also on this channel where we look at the contribution of women to our continued liberation. Welcome, sister.
Thank you.
And the comrade, a legend himself, an explorer extraordinaire, the man who has single-handedly renamed River Thames in London. He's comrade Milton Allimadi. He is the host of Black Star News, WBAI, which you can hear on 9.5 FM on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He's also the author of Manufacturing Hate, which is the motivation for this program you're watching. Welcome, comrade.
Karibu, asante. Just a quick note before sister gets into it.
Yeah.
We all need to make discoveries, our revenge discoveries in our lifetime. So I'm waiting for our sisters and I'm waiting for your discovery as well.
Okay, so yeah.
What are we renaming the Thames? What was it? What's the new name or the original name? What are we doing?
We gave that one Gulu River. So I'm waiting for some honorific Nigerian name in the US and in Europe as well.
Sounds good. I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
Excellent.
Since we're here to talk news, let's start with the news where you're at. And ladies first, obviously.
Lord. Well, the primaries are underway in the state of Texas. The white nationalists, and I will include Colbert in this because even our liberal white friends sometimes show up in other ways. And so he apparently had taped an interview with James Tallarico, who is the other contender for the U.S. Senate against Jasmine Crockett. And Trump and his goonies tried to make sure that the interview wasn't aired. And so they made it a really big deal. He did not offer Jasmine an interview. There's this whole issue of equal time, equal airtime, all of that. And so there are some who are contending that he's kind of trying to put his finger on the scale, if you will, because clearly with all that uproar, there was a lot of, you could see it on Google Trends, there was a lot of trending in terms of people searching Mr. Tallarico. I voted, and I will say it on the air, I voted for Jasmine Crockett. And I'm hoping that we America, whenever we need to be saved, we go back to Black people and Black women in particular to save us. But when we have moments like this, we come up with excuses why not to put the most qualified person who has already proven themselves in those positions. So I'm hoping that we buck that trend and that we actually do vote, come out in large enough numbers and give her our vote so that she can make it through the primaries. But nonetheless, the primaries are underway. And here in Texas, typically during the primary season, the Republicans outvote us. Outvote, when I say us, at this point, I am voting with the Democrats. I'm actually an independent. But usually the Republicans outvote the Democrats 3-1. In Texas, you have to choose a party primary to vote in. You cannot vote in, you can't vote generally. You have to choose either the Republican primary or the Democratic primary. And right now, the turnout for the Democrats is in a lot of places head to head with the Republicans, and in some places much more significant than the turnout for the Republicans. So we'll see what that bodes. I do want to say this for any Black person in Texas or across the United States of America who is still thinking that they are somehow being some kind of revolutionary by not voting in these primaries. Understand that it wasn't even until the 1940s, I want to say 1944 in particular, that there was a Supreme Court case that gave us back the right to vote in the primaries in Texas, because in Texas they had whites only primaries. So they determined who was on the general election, and then we got to maybe cast a vote once you jumped through all the poll taxing that they put in place. So please go out and exercise your right to vote. The primaries the early voting carries on until February 27th. The polls are open today, and then election day is actually March 3rd. So please go out and vote and call your friends and post it on social media and so on and so forth. Really quickly, one other piece of news in the state of Texas, Governor Abbott, it's so interesting, these white fascists, we talk about the Taliban and how we talk about the Islamic
ISIS
radicals and how they're trying to force their religion on other people, and you don't see how you're doing the same thing. So right now they have basically passed a law for schools in the UT Texas system, University of Texas system, where the professors are going to be scrutinized if they are teaching on what they consider controversial topics. So pretty much, and that's very broadly defined, really vaguely defined. So any student can be in your class, record you, decide they don't like that you said people should vote, or they don't like that you mentioned Frederick Douglass, or they don't like that you said, oh, there used to be lynching, or they don't like that you brought up Brown v. Board of Education, that's controversial, or women should have the rights to their own bodies. And these people basically can come for your jobs. I believe it's in Oklahoma where they're voting to take away tenure from the public colleges and universities. And so we see how they're going to destroy their entire system. The same country that was supposedly built on freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of speech, all of these so-called freedoms, because they hate Black and brown people so much, they are destroying their own country and can't even see it. Talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yep.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the bearded German wrote about all of this. So, the capitalist who would manufacture the rope with which he hangs himself. We're seeing all the signs of systemic decay, very consistent with what has been studied and written about, It's not even episodic anymore. It's so general. But on my side, I would say 3. That to me is the biggest news so far.
Yes.
Because that is going to have significant impact across the board. Yeah, I mean, I think personally, these justices, of course, they don't live in a cocoon, right? So they've been watching, and they watch the news as well. I think they were freaked out by what's going on in Minnesota. As we spoke about this, was it 2 weeks ago? When you start shooting Europeans in broad daylight, okay? That's something different. I'm not saying it should be different, of course.
Yeah.
I'm saying all of victims from the Africana community, those should have been taken seriously, right? But it's not taken seriously because the so far dominant demographic population in this country. But once even members of the Supreme Court, the so-called conservatives, saw that, they said, no, this is time to start reining this guy in. And one of the most powerful weapons he's had so far, of course, is this blackmailing the world with the whole tariff thing.
Tariffs, yeah.
So to really strike that down, that is really going to cap him significantly on many other issues as well. And this could be the first of a few other pulling him in, realizing that at the end of the day, if everything falls, including even the justices of the Supreme Court.
Well, you know what? I'm totally not impressed with them. because in the first place, they're the ones who crowned him king.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who said, yes, you can go and shoot your political opponent, and if you do it under the guise of your presidency, there are no repercussions for you. What did they think for any human being, given that unfettered power, that would mean? And then particularly this man having shown himself for who he has always been. This is nothing new, this megalomania.
But it was about the Negroes.
Well,
and once they saw that, wait a minute.
You all dug a hole for us. And you know what? We might fall in the hole, but you are coming right in the hole with us. How about that?
And that's what, they realized that, wait a minute.
And unlike
when you started Inferno, you can't be selective. Fire, only target those folks. Fire, only target. It doesn't work like that.
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight.
Unlike you, Black people are seeds. When we get buried, we grow. Otherwise, we would have been wiped off the face of this earth with all of the atrocities that we have been subjected to. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. And then, of course, he went on this super tantrum. So maybe he's going to fire the Supreme Court because he's dictator in chief. We'll see.
Yeah, true. So on this side, yes, we woke up to the news on Thursday morning that Andrew Maboutin Windsor has been arrested, for those who don't know who that is.
Why do you look so delighted?
Oh, you can tell. Then he was arrested. And not only was he arrested, but he was also arrested on his 66th birthday.
Dang, who did that?
Listen, we're cold like that. We're very petty.
So remember, this is actually very sad. Remember how, was it Dylan Roof or another one of these mass murderers who was taken to the McDonald's?
Yeah,
McDonald's first by the police en route to being booked. So you've seen that meme where they stopped at this Pizza Express for Andrew. He asked if he stopped at that Pizza Express because I remember he said, "Remember?"
Did he really?
No.
It's a meme. It's a meme.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah, he went to Pizza Express. I couldn't have been there because I was
crazy.
at Pizza Express. So yeah, he was picked up. He was picked up in the east of England, Norfolk, on the Sandringham Estate, which is one of the King's country homes. And he was driven down to a police station. He was held for a couple of hours, released under caution, and which means you can't speak to anyone outside about what you've been asked and stuff like that. But what's interesting about A is there are two simultaneous investigations going on with regards to him. One is the child trafficking scandal, and then the other one is what is
state secrets.
Which is where they said public misconduct. And so for those who don't know what public misconduct means here, it means treason. So, and the last royal that was arrested for treason was King Charles I. And unfortunately, he lost his head at the Tower. So the inkling here is we might have some more Tower action. So, but we don't have the death penalty on our books anymore. So that is completely off the books.
Andrew's going to flee to some, I wonder which African country he'll pick. Which one of the rulers would take some of his British pounds to give him
Tinubu
exile?
Nigeria will take him.
I don't think Nigeria will even take. I don't think
But
Nigeria will take.
the most amazing thing was that photograph. That photograph. I don't know if your
Of
sister,
him,
you saw that photograph, right?
of
Of
him being
him
driven back.
over
In the back seat of the car.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that one.
Comrade, can you pull it up? Or it will
It
take so too
was.
much time.
Yeah, it will probably take
Okay,
time.
what? Oh, that photo just sums it all.
Yeah.
Sums it all.
Yeah,
Once you see it,
he's a
we can
broken man.
discuss it a little bit next week. But go ahead.
Yeah, he's a broken man. So I just want to say the statement by the king that he would allow the law to follow its full course is quite, because he puts the king in a very uncomfortable position. Here is the thing. The prosecution will be brought by the crown. So effectively it is brother who is charging him. It's also, the courts are also in the name of the brother. So it's king's royal courts. And so if he's going to serve in any prison, he also be in prison in His Majesty's prisons. So it's like keep it in the family kind of punishment, as the news media has been making the rounds here. But it's quite big news here. And I see American audience have been asking the question, why is it that only on this side of the world that action seems to be taking place with regards to the Epstein files? Unfortunately, he has put himself in a precarious situation where if he's not seen to be dealt with, it means the law is just a farce. So which means he's going to be, they've already ostracized him. So, and everybody, including a man and his dog, is just pointing the finger at him at this point.
I think that was an easy choice. Charles went like this: Empire versus Andrew.
Yes.
Empire.
And yes, and somebody said in the chat that mommy can no longer save him. Yes, unfortunately, yes, mama is no longer here. He used to be the queen's favorite son.
Why are you saying unfortunately? I don't see anything unfortunate about that.
No, because
you have to be held accountable.
No, because when a civil court case was brought against him, it was mommy that paid £10.5 million. Mommy is no longer here. King Charles is not going to spend that kind of amount of money on nobody. That's it, which gives us time to go to the news of today. We go to Germany, where last week we had Marco Rubio come to town. And basically, I just want us to have a quick look at this. The irony should not be lost on anyone that this speech was made in Munich. We're in February, which is also the last month of the so-called Berlin Conference in 1885. And so when he comes there and makes this statement, there's a particular part where I want us to just focus. Okay, the first of two is, he said America was founded 250 years ago, but the roots began here on this continent, meaning Europe. The men who settled and built the nation of my birth arrived on our shores carrying the memories and traditions and the Christian faith of their ancestors as a sacred inheritance and unbreakable link between the old world and the new. So we're part of one civilization. He is, harking back to the good old days. But the part I want us to give focus to is here. Where is it? I believe, yeah. He says, we're walking together on a shared path, referring to Europe, the Americas and the Europe. This is the path that President Trump and the United States have embarked upon. It is the path we ask you here in Europe to join us on. It is a path we must walk together. We have walked together before, and we hope to. What does he mean by that? For 5 centuries before the end of the Second World War, and the West has been expanding its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, he then goes into whatever happened thereafter. So the question is people from the global south and currently based in the belly of the beast, how would you envisage what Marco Rubio is hacking back to? Comrade, you go first.
To be frank, based on what we've seen already, and as Sister said, based on what people knew about this administration from the past, I don't think there's anything remarkable about this speech at all.
Okay.
The only thing that I found remarkable was that he didn't even bother to do like an AI edit. If you had run it through AI at least once, the speech could have been even much better, even with the whole reactionary. No, not for real. There's so many segments repeated
So with
verbatim.
your shade.
Yeah.
There's so many things repeated verbatim again and again and again, right? The speech, first of all, should not have been this long. AI could have cut 75% of the speech and maintained all the points that he had in the speech. So that's my number one comment. And then, as an editor, obviously he wrote it himself or he copied and pasted it himself. But a professional speechwriter would not write a speech like this. So maybe he wrote it by himself, which then raises the question. I didn't have time. I wanted to look back at his educational history. You see what I'm saying? Because now I'm very concerned about that as well. As an editor, for anyone writing a paper, even in college or high school, you would tell them, don't have too many topics. You see? Have a few key topics and then elaborate on those topics. So the guy is all over this place. The speech, as you pointed out accurately, is like a speech you're giving at the Berlin conference at the dawn of conquest, global conquest. And then it's a speech you're giving at the Cold War, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Cold War, the wall just came down. It's a speech you're giving to the National Front in Britain, or to the KKK, or MAGA, right? So you're mixing that there. It's a speech you're wanting to give to UN to, try to reinvigorate the UN. So the speech is totally all over the place. And then, also, it shows significant ignorance. You don't switch de-industrialize or re-industrialize like that, right? Because that presumes economic control, managing the economy. And when people start talking about managing the economy, which of course I think is needed, then you're talking socialism. Otherwise, let the capitalists make their decisions, right? The reason why the U.S. deindustrialized is because manufacturers wanted cheaper labor, right?
And
So if you want to maximize profit for your shareholders, you look for where cheap labor is, and you're allowed to operate. That's why they have what's called multinationals. Of course, they exploit us to the benefit of the shareholders. So Rubio is not aware of that, Doesn't he want to overthrow Cuba because Castro nationalized multinational companies? Hello?
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, it's one of the most confusing, almost illiterate that a Secretary of State attaches his name to, and he goes there and says, first of all, you're not even completely white. You're not white, first of all. So let me remind you that. But he said, we came here as Europeans. We conquered what is now the United States, and now I'm coming back home as a European. Look at the fruits of our Europeanness. And then my final point, because I don't want to spend too much time on this, and I'm sure the sister has some zingers as well. To me, the most revealing thing is when it came to the Q&A. Nobody even asked about us against the rest of the barbarians and all that nonsense, right? They focus on 2 points, Ukraine and China. It means that your audience was literally saying, what are you talking about? These are the important things, and these are the questions, That's all I have to say about this.
Sister?
And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where else you would go, and you would have heard that kind of takedown and analysis of Marco Rubio's speech, which is why I come to African News Review so I can sit and hear from the master. Seriously. I don't know why you're asking me any question. He had just taught a class on it.
No, but you read.
What does the student have to offer to this? Okay, so just so that, not that you pay me, but just so that I can earn my living while I'm still on here. No, seriously, from a moral perspective, that speech is very concerning.
Yes.
Because there seems to be a serum that Trump and everybody around him are taking, like an injection they're taking, where it's like, truth doesn't matter. Ethics, morality, humanity. And listen, we are going to be as brazen as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we have no shame whatsoever. So Rubio looked to me like a little boy Unfortunately, I have lived in some rough neighborhoods, or maybe fortunately, where I have seen young boys trying to prove that they can be members of a gang.
Yeah.
And they're trying so hard to prove they're big and
Yes,
bad, so on and
absolutely.
so forth. He seemed like a little boy saying, Daddy, kind of like Pam Bondi as well. Daddy, look at me. I
Yeah.
can stand up and I
No,
can,
that's
and
great.
I'm white and we have no shame. And we went and we took over the world. We built empire. That was the phrase. Empire, expanded empire. Like, what does empire mean? Are we talking about human beings? Are we talking about lives? Are we talking about people that you destroyed? Are we talking about an environment that cannot come back, maybe, if we don't give it a rest? So it's an empire. And we are not going to be made to feel ashamed. The fact that you even said that, you should be ashamed.
You're ashamed. Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have to bring it up. But we're not going to be ashamed. But you know what? The camera panned to the audience. And there were some who were looking with some kind of consternation, like, where are you going with this? But then there were others who were like, yes, we don't want to be ashamed. Yes, we want our white pride. Yes. And I could just see poor white sharecroppers right before the advent of the Civil War who were saying, I don't have any shoes on my feet, but damn it, we can't let these Negroes, these N-words, be free, because then they'll be poor like me. But I mean, I'm poor and desperate and destitute, but at least I'm white.
Yes.
So we gotta fight for our whiteness. It's killing us, but we gotta fight for our whiteness. And so what I heard from Rubio was a complete, first of all, he wrote Black and brown people completely out of history. He basically thought he was giving a history lesson. And it was the advent of civilization, and everything that has happened in the course of humanity has been Europeans and Europeans only. He brought in the Asians just for 2 seconds, and then that. But Black and brown people played no role. We came in just as empire, pawns to be acted upon.
Right.
What was interesting to me was, and I brought this up the last time we spoke, was while this speech was taking place in Munich, African leaders were meeting at the African Union Summit. And we really weren't making much headway in terms of what we should be doing for ourselves. That's what I'm more concerned about. Because what is clear, and the Canadian Prime Minister said the quiet part out loud, is if you're not at the table, you are on the menu. As far as Rubio and Trump are concerned, they as Europeans, and they need to bring Europe along with them, because they know America can't stand alone to do this. So they have to convince the other Europeans to come along with them in this madness. They are at the top of the food chain, and everybody else just needs to be who they consume. But here's another concern that I have with listening to that, is what we're going to do in response. We know Asia is responding in the way that they're responding. What are we going to do in response to this? Because they've made it very clear where they stand. And that's all I care about, is what are we going to do in response to people who are making it very clear that our lives are expendable. Mm-hmm. Of course, as you said, comrade, it's so unfortunate that this brown man is standing there claiming white Spanish roots, but forgetting all of the mixtures that are in him, and rejecting that, and just the self-hatred and the self-loathing, all in service to this orange felon. Last point I want to make on this. The further issue is going and reading the charter of the Board of Peace. I'm not sure that Europe will not kowtow to Trump and Rubio and the rest of them. And comrade, I hope you have a different take on this.
Right.
Because when you read that the UN agreed to this Board of Peace, and they agreed to a charter that says Trump is chairman for life, and he gets to choose his successor, and the U.S. can refuse to pay their bill to the UN, but can collect money. The Board of Peace can collect money, but that money is going directly into the coffers of wherever Donald Trump says it's going into, and not into the UN coffers. when it says that anything that happens under the Board of Peace has to be approved of by Trump, and he unilaterally can disagree with it and it doesn't happen, when he's choosing who sits on there, and I'm even looking at who is the representative for the Palestinians on there, his son-in-law is on there, Rubio is on there, and this is all happening under the unction of the UN. I don't know, you all, where we're going. Let me stop there.
Right, so I go back to 6-3, as I said earlier. No, really, 6-3 is going to be a defining moment in the history of the United States and the history of the world. Because when you have three conservatives decisively repudiating this man, it means that they have realized that madness can only be tolerated for so far until it starts consuming even the ones that you were hoping would not be touched, right? So, and I'm glad that he's 80 years old, and this is a very tough job. He's hoping to build up this, board of peace, whatever it is. But I think personally, it's going to be remarkable if he finishes 3 more years. It's a tough job. It is a tough job. You saw what it did to Biden.
He's bloating. His ankles are overflowing.
No. Definitely. So physically, mentally, psychologically, I have my doubts. 3 more years. We have already seen the significant decline in 1 year alone. And we saw the rapid decline, Biden's last 6 months.
Correct.
So to imagine that the current president can have 3 more years of this job, I have significant doubts, number one. And I think that is going to impact a lot of the things. And then I also think that he had a unique combination of finding European Americans at the right time for a candidate like him. And it's hard to duplicate a candidate that brings a lot of the qualities that the MAGA, was looking for. They're already having significant pushback from the Tucker Carlson, from the Marjorie Taylor Greene, and all those guys. So I think as their own internal contradictions, keep clashing, and the Supreme Court finally starts waking up and saying, wait a minute, this thing was not intended for people that look like us. So that's why I have some hope. And then finally, when it comes to what are we going to do, I agree with Sister totally 100%. We have one blessing, that all the ingredients that they use for their factories come from Africa. So our biggest challenge is how to get rid of these African Europeans who are mismanaging the African state today and replace them with Africans who actually care for Africans, And if we are able to accomplish that, and obviously we need to inspire the youth to do that, then I think we can start heading in the right direction.
I mean, it's funny that you brought up the UN and saying the UN needs reforming. If anything that needs reforming is the Security Council. The Security Council has undermined, the politics of the Security Council has undermined the United Nations.
Absolutely.
Since its inception. I mean, just a quick look at the veto voting powers. It says the veto has been exercised 300 times.
No, you're right.
Since its inception. And the United States has exercised it 81 times.
Wow.
But 51 times on only one subject. Any guess what that subject is?
Israel.
There you go.
That's why we don't have a two-state solution so far. And that's why we still have the occupation. With the same UN that you condemn, you're the one who has undermined its resolutions. Yeah. You're right.
Exactly. And only recently, it sanctioned the International Court for Justice. And the Chief Prosecutor, Karim Khan, have been placed on sanctions. I mean, you begin to see, Lord, that a country that prides itself on the rule of law is now sanctioning an international jurist. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, let me give you one that actually blew my mind. I was reading something else and I came across this and I had to go and really research it. The United Nations General Assembly took a vote to recognize the right to food as a fundamental human right. The right to food as a fundamental human right. 2 countries voted against it.
Let me guess.
I'm going to give a whopping $10. What two countries voted against the right to food as a fundamental right?
The second one, I don't know, but the first
United
I know is the United States. Because I know that in the 1970s, the World Bank, which of course is controlled by the United States, ordered Malawi to destroy food that it had
Its
stored
reserves.
in granaries in order to qualify for a World Bank loan. The second
And
country,
I think the other will probably be Israel. I think it'll probably be Israel.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you come to African News Review. We did not
Yeah,
practice any of that, and they are right on.
It'll probably
The
be
United
Israel.
States and Israel. Who votes against the right for people to eat?
the ultimate imperialist, because as Sankara said famously, he who controls
He
the
who-
meal on your plate, that is imperialism right there.
That's it. Wow. Okay. Any other final thoughts before we move on?
You can't get any bigger than that. Once somebody controls
Okay.
what you eat and make a decision whether you eat or not, you're finished.
Mm.
You're finished.
Okay. So, still on Trump, we go to the Radio France International, and it is that the the U.S. ambassador arrives in Pretoria as tension persists. It says shaky relations between the U.S. and South Africa faces a key test as newly arrived Ambassador Brent Bozil takes up its post in Pretoria. The United Nations newly appointed ambassador to South Africa, conservative media critic Brent Bozil, has arrived in Pretoria to take up his post. The U.S. Embassy confirmed on Tuesday, offering a fresh chapter in a relationship that has been under increasing strain. The Trump administration has accused South Africa of perpetrating genocide against white South Africans, a claim that Pretoria has strongly rejected. The ambassador designate must still present his credentials to President Cyril Ramaphosa before formally assuming his duties. Neither the U.S. Embassy nor South African Foreign Ministry has indicated when the story might take place. So, if anything, he might actually be rejected. So, can we go on? Comrade.
All right. So on this story, once again, I start off by saying 6-3, right? In fact, no, really, because that was the cudgel that they were using on South Africa. I think they slapped them with a tariff of what? Was it 25 or 30%? So when the ambassador comes to present his credentials to Ramaphosa, Ramaphosa should be wearing a T-shirt that just says,
6-3.
and then accept his credentials. No, really, it's undermined a lot.
Maybe we should have a T-shirt ANR 6-3.
Definitely, without a doubt, I would wear that T-shirt because now you've cut off the foot of the ambassador who had come flexing muscle. Okay, so now it's 30%. You know, we could up it to 50%. Well, actually, now you cannot because the court has struck it. In fact,
0%.
Africa can now demand a refund, just like all these other countries. Well, I think the total is more than 30 billion in potential refund. So I don't know what to say.
Well, guess who's positioned to make money though from if the country has to if the Trump government has to refund these tariffs that have been paid. Guess who positioned themselves to make money from that?
That would be the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
His sons have brought up whatever they set up where if the government is required to pay back these tariffs, they make money off the fact that the government has to. They have their hands in the till coming and going. Yeah.
And
yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. Sometimes you read these things, it's like, what is going on?
Right.
What is going on?
It's amazing because, a lot of these things, we have seen in many African countries, right? Where the regime and the acolytes, the family abuse power. And then after they're no longer in power, people say, well, wait a minute. So I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing elements of that in the United States in a few years once his term expires as well. He's reminding me of Chilubana in Zambia. Total abuse of power, profiteering. And then, of course, when the government that replaced him came in, He ended up spending the rest of his remaining years of life in court. You see?
I mean, this story particularly gives us an entry point to pay tribute to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was one of the foremost champion for the anti-apartheid movement against the fall of apartheid and the release of Nelson Mandela. And the reason I say that is in Nigeria, he was giving his flowers on Tuesday when the foreign minister said, and I mean, it just goes to show the character of the man when he said, give me a plane. I want to go round the Southern African countries to whip up the sentiment with regards to the foremost position of fighting against apartheid. And Nigeria acquiesced, gave him a Boeing 707. And basically, he did all his tours and while he was reporting to the United States, he was also reporting to his friend, who was at the time the foreign minister of Nigeria, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi. And even when Bolaji Akinyemi left power, and anytime he came to Washington, D.C., and they were outside the Nigerian embassy protesting, he said Reverend Jackson will pull him aside and say, my friend, you want to go and sit in that coffee shop over there, drink some coffee, don't get arrested, because if you do, you'll be denied a visa and you will not be able to come in here again. So that kind of formal thought we should give flowers to the man, and may he rest in power, as they say. And
but the other half of that too. The other half of that is the question is, where is Nigeria's leadership today on a lot of these global issues? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Nigeria should be at the forefront. And of course, we understand why. When imperialism is breathing down your neck, the back of your neck, because Nigeria should be speaking about Cuba right now and saying Cuba helped liberate Angola, Namibia, and South Africa. We will not allow Cuba to collapse because of a lack of energy resources. And Nigeria, with a couple of African countries, we're going to stand with Cuba and send these resources because we have it. Fuel. Of course, they won't do it because, one call from the White House, it's very sad.
They'll be shaking in their boots. Speaking of Cuba, I was actually reading this book in the course of the week, part of preparing for this program, and it helps us to understand how the impression we have about Cuba has come to be. And that is Manufacturing the Enemy. It's the media war against Cuba. And it's written by Keith Bollender. It's a brilliant book. I mean, the first couple of pages are you could begin to see all of the money that is poured in order to make sure Cuba is just seen in the most damaging lights whatsoever. That said, any final thoughts on that story?
Yeah, just first of all, can you pull the story back up?
Sure.
To the very beginning, please.
Oh, you've been summoned, Mr. Buzzell.
Yeah, right there. I'm in my Cardi B. She has a different way to say, but I'll just say I'm petty. Because since the felon-in-chief wanted to bring apes into the conversation, anybody watch Planet of the Apes? Because this guy certainly looks like a prototype for an orangutan. I'm just saying.
Listen to her.
Okay. I saw that picture. I was like, these people project.
Are you suggesting that if you give him a brown beard and brown hair, is that what you're suggesting?
Listen, I'm just saying that they project. When you feel insecure, when you don't feel good about yourself, you project onto other people your insecurity. So you look at yourself in the mirror and then you see the specimen of the people you're attacking, and this rage builds up in you. And the only way you can feel better is by attacking these people. Let me just say that. So having said that, I have no idea why he's even allowed in South Africa. Because if you're an ambassador coming to work in my country, and you are making statements specifically to undermine security in my country, there's no reason for me to allow you entrance into my country. So we keep playing these games, keep trying to massage the ego of this madman. And I know the FBI listening, they could probably come pick me up. whatever. You guys, if you see a GoFundMe for me and for my children, make sure my kids are taken care of. That's all I'm saying. No, because our silence isn't going to save us. So be it. On Wednesday, we're going to be doing Ida B. Wells. She spoke up. I cannot, at this point in my life, just be cowering in fear, because our fear is not going to save us. So my point is, why was he even allowed to step foot in South Africa when he is an open sworn enemy to the government of South Africa?
Yep.
Do we not have the sovereignty to say, no, you're going to have to pick another ambassador, or no, this one cannot serve here?
Yeah, you do.
He has said it outright. I am here to undermine your government and to undermine what you stand for. So why is he allowed there? That's all I have to say on that.
Okay. It was a demonstration of powerlessness. I agree with you. But, our ancestors work in very ironic ways, as I said, because now people should start selling the 6-3 T-shirt in front of the U.S. ambassador's residence in Pretoria and let him stay there and watch it. He might himself ask to be withdrawn.
Get a trademark on 6-3.
He might ask to be withdrawn from South Africa himself voluntarily,
That's it. Let's go to this story, and it's a rehash of the Olympics, and it's about what we do on women and resistance, trying to avoid the erasure of women's history. And the story is from the Vanity Fair. It's who is Sonia Bonali, the skating star who brought the backflip to the ice. At Milano Cortina 26, the world applauded Ilya Malinin backflip, but long before him, Sonia Bonali dared gravity and the rules. There she is in her full glory. Who is she? So she is 9-time French champion, 5 times European champion, 3 times world runner-up. Sonia Bonali had left a mark on the history of figure skating, a groundbreaker, a virtuoso, often misunderstood and denigrated. She made a mark without ever conforming. But the part that is important that we take away is what happened. In 1994, at the World Championship in Chiba, Japan, the divide was clear. Sonia Bonali delivered a program of exceptional mastery, but it was her rival, Japan's Yuka Sato, who took the gold. Officially, it was a question of standards. Unofficially, many felt that her skin color was the issue. The world still is unaccustomed to seeing a black champion dominate this discipline. In tears, she initially refused to step upon the second step of the platform. Then she accepted before removing the silver medal from her neck. The audience roared. A journalist then asked, "Why didn't you accept the medal? What was the problem?" She replied, "Because it is not where I belong. I am disappointed." Sister.
So this is my girl from way back when. I actually watched her in real time back then. Some of you may be old enough to remember this. And she was amazing.
Yeah.
And you would listen to the commentary, right? Because, they're giving commentary while they're skating.
Correct.
And it would be the same kind of commentary that you heard when the Williams sisters initially first hit the scene.
Correct.
They're grunting too loud. Oh, they're too masculine. Oh, they're too this. Their athleticism, they're this. And so when they're talking about the other skaters, what we would hear is their grace and the lines and the flow. That's literally what you're going to hear. And as soon as Soria comes out, she was adopted by her mother. Her adopted mother is white, by the way, for those who don't know. As soon as Soria comes out, her thighs and they would just make her this other kind of specimen in her athletic build, and it did not matter how much higher she went, how many more spins she did, how graceful she was. They would never call her graceful. And so when you see world runner-up, 5 times?
Yeah.
They just could never give this darker-skinned Black woman who was loud in her Blackness, because they don't want us to be loud in our Blackness, right? She had bright-colored outfits. She had makeup that was, very theatrical.
Yep.
And But she came and she owned that ice every time. Now, let me tell you about that last backflip. They knew she was going to do it, of course, because you submit your stuff way in advance. This woman had just come back from a torn
Achilles.
Achilles. I think it was her Achilles.
Achilles.
I've never had my Achilles turn, but I've had a sister who had Achilles turn, and I know how long it took to recuperate and all of that. And just the sheer tenacity it takes to risk that, to have practiced and to risk that, and she landed it cleanly, beautifully. And all they could say was, it's too risky, whatever. They're afraid that their frail, graceful athletes would try to do this and bust their heads open. So because they can't do it, we're going to penalize her for being superior. Whatever happened to meritocracy? And so this woman, every time you would watch her come out and skate flawlessly, they would mark her down for her gracefulness, all of that, and just the way they would talk about her. And so I was very happy that she showed her disdain, because at all times we are supposed to make them feel good about discriminating against us. We are never supposed to show anger. We're never supposed to show disappointment. We're just supposed to be like little lap dogs and say, well, thank you for the crumbs today. I'll keep trying harder. And I was so proud of her. She's now, of course, a U.S. citizen, battling, I hope, recovering from breast cancer. But this woman is tenacity in motion, because the amount of vitriol she experienced, lack of support, disrespect, and still meet after meet, she would show up and be excellent and would never fall apart in front of them when I was falling apart on her behalf in my living room watching her. Sorry, Banali, I take my hat off to you. And the fact that now a European male can now land it is no longer so dangerous. What changed? Did the ice change? What changed?
Right.
What changed from 1994 to 2026? What changed? Yeah.
Comedy at all?
Yeah, so what the Olympic Committee actually needs to do is to give her the gold medal. She's still alive. They shouldn't wait and do it posthumously. They should acknowledge the racism and say, we'll try to do better in the future, and give her the gold medal and close that chapter. It is so obvious that she deserves a gold medal. You didn't give her her at that year. So you make a special gold medal and have a gold medal that was awarded for that year, 2 gold medals. That's the only solution that I can see. They shouldn't be allowed to get away with it. It's not her fault. You can't blame her for your racism. Why should she pay the price for your racism? So give her the gold medal. She's still here. That should be a campaign.
How many times have we seen them do this? When Tiger Woods bust on the scene, they started redesigning golf courses.
Yep.
Oh, well, because he's so good in this way and we want to take away his advantage. Mm-hmm. They keep changing the rules. We master it. We come. We dominate. They change the rules.
Yeah, so that's our demand. Give her gold medal.
And then you want to project onto other people that they're inferior when really that's how you feel. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe we should start a petition. Give her
without a doubt. That was crossing my mind. I was listening to you speak. That this is a petition that I think people would support.
I believe so. Yeah.
So
okay, so somebody in the chat, let's give our audience assignment. Who in the chat? Go to change.org, right? That's a place they can start it.
Yep.
And start a petition.
No, you will draft it. You eloquently made the argument. You draft it. Adesoji and I will be the first 2 signatories, and we take it from there.
Okay, come back next week Sunday, and we'll have the link for all of us to sign.
Yep.
I'll get to work on that.
Okay. Right. So a quick and final one for those who are here for the first time. If you've been enjoying what you've been listening to and watching, do like, share, and subscribe. So the final story is from the BBC, and it's that a Russian pickup artist, in inverted commas, accused of secretly filming women in Ghana and Kenya. So the crux of the matter is authorities in Kenya and Ghana are examining reports that a Russian man covertly filmed sexual encounters with women in the two African nations, then shared the footage online without their consent. Ghana said it intends to request the man be extradited from Russia, while Kenya's government said it's pursuing the case with urgency. Sister.
I really don't know what to say on this. I was trying to do a little bit more research on it. Now they're saying they're not sure that the person is really Russian. They really don't know the identity of the person. How are people getting visas and all of that to get into our countries that we don't know what the identity of this person is?
That is beyond me. That is beyond
I'm trying to understand some of our officials in collusion with this. So I hope that this is not just going to be something that they think they'll sweep under the rug and people will forget. There's so much exploitation happening on the continent, and these stories are coming out too often. Our government needs to protect our people. And I'm glad that you are highlighting this, because we also need to be vigilant in who we let into our spaces and what we believe in. And just, again, this notion of always believing that the white man's ice is cooler. I think that we let our guards down in ways that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
And we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. So hopefully the government, both in Ghana and Kenya, will collaborate with each other. They have to be able to figure out who's been coming into their country, in and out. Who is this person? And then you have to first start with identifying the person, and then let alone figuring out whether wherever their country of origin is will extradite, so that you can actually pursue charges against them. But if we need to start doing social media PSAs for people to understand how to better protect themselves against these predators, that should be something that governments across the world, but particularly in Africa, are paying attention to and doing, even as we fight so many other battles.
Comrade, take us home.
Well, I can only add that Ghana seems to have some very tough laws and sentences. They're talking anywhere from 20 to 25 years for these types of crimes, you know.
Okay. That said, we've come to the end of another, hopefully, informative episode of African News Review. And I must thank my esteemed panel. I have Fubara Eneli Esquire, Milton, Allimadi. Any final thoughts from you? Victoria Seta. And until next week, it's a good night and God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, Wednesday.
That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review podcast. We hope you are leaving with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.